I first want to start out with talking a little bit about myself, which I actually rarely do when I do any type of presentation and training. But I'm going to do that here today. I'm going to kind of break my own rule. And the reason why is because we're here to talk about securing new clients, implementing a go-to-market strategy, and I want to kind of give the background on really my company and where this all comes from. I personally have implemented a lot of what I'm going to talk about here today. So I want to kind of start out with telling you about what I've gone through and what I've done, and then I'll kind of back into all of that with talking about some tips and concepts that you could implement. When I was in college, I knew that I wanted to be in sales with some different jobs I did in college. So the first job out of college, I worked in inside sales at Compaq for a few years, moved on to work at Schlumberger, worked in a marketing role. As soon as I could get back into sales, I took that opportunity. I worked at BMC Software, worked in a sales role, then moved on to a role in working in sales for a company called Kronos. I left Kronos probably I got impacted by the Great Recession, and I found myself kind of in between jobs, whether deservedly so or bad luck, bad timing. But all this way up until this point, I always wanted to start my own business, and I kind of struggled with having the capital or the guts or the idea. So I was always thinking of ideas, and I'd come up with an idea, and maybe I'd go Google it, and somebody had done it already. Or I thought I had a good idea, but I didn't have the money or didn't know where to get started. Well, when I found myself kind of in between, I thought, well, okay, this is the time. So I was passionate about sales, and I had learned a lot about sales, and I kind of had the idea to start a sales consulting company. There would be minimal capital required for that. So while I was in between, I started a sales consulting company called Launchpad Solutions. But I really knew that I still was a bit green. I needed a little bit more experience. So while I started my own consulting business, I actually went and I got one last position, and I worked for one more year, and I sold payroll outsourcing, which I did. I had a couple opportunities that I could pursue. I chose payroll outsourcing because I knew it would be difficult, and the company that I worked for had like a 13-week training program. So basically, I worked for a year, really, dusted up my skills, learned a lot, and during that year, I started to put the pieces into place for Launchpad Solutions. And why this is important is that I certainly focused on my job of selling payroll, but what I did at night was I started blogging on my Launchpad website about sales tips and sales tactics. And I ended up getting my website to start ranking on a lot of sales tactics, and I started developing some search engine optimization credit to my website and started getting some traffic. I left Ceridian, and then I focused on Launchpad Solutions, and through search engine optimization, that was one of the ways I was able to find new clients for Launchpad Solutions. So we'll talk a little bit about search engine optimization here today. What I also did to establish new clients for Launchpad was I did a networking. So I would go to a few networking events a week, and I was just heads down on networking. So through search engine optimization and networking, I was able to establish a sales consulting practice. Now, what I realized was that all of my clients needed help with finding new clients, which is kind of what we're talking about here today. And a lot of what we were doing was we were developing strategies around cold calling and outbound phone prospecting. And what I realized was that if I had people that could do the prospecting for my clients, I could sell that very easily. And if I sold sort of cold calling services, I would probably be more credible as a sales consultant. So I ended up actually just purchasing a cloud CRM, a cloud phone system, put in a jobs posting on Craigslist, hired some work-at-home cold callers, and within a day and no capital, I had a cold call outsourcing business. It was virtual. Anyways, I ran that business for a few years. It was an honest living. And like I said, I drove new business through networking and search engine optimization primarily. But after a few years of that, I got pretty good at generating sales scripts because every time a client hired us, I would have to create a campaign, a script, and I'd have to hire a cold caller. So I got really good at creating scripts, and I got really good at training and hiring cold callers. Well, in 2012, I had an idea that I could create a web-based application that had all the questions that I would use for interviewing my clients and had all the templates that I was repurposing for call scripts. And I ended up, and by the way, when I had this idea, I went to Google and did a search for like a sales script generator, a sales script software. There was nothing like it out there. This was the one time where I Googled my idea and nobody had done it yet. And so I pursued it. I hired some people on the other side of the world, and basically in 2013 I launched version 1 of Sales Scripter. Now, again, not to make this all about me, but getting back to go-to-market strategies and getting new business. When I had the idea for Sales Scripter, I immediately bought the domain and I started blogging and developing content on salescripter.com. It took us about 6 months or so to develop the beta product. So from the idea and establishing the company to 6 months later is when we launched the product. All that time while my developers were building the product, I was writing blog posts and pumping content out there. And what that did is that by the time I launched my product, Google was already sending me traffic through search engine optimization for free. I was already ranking on sales scripts, writing sales scripts, all sorts of keywords related to my business because I was developing content. Fast forward now, so we're 7 years later. Between 2013 and now, I stopped doing the cold call outsourcing, and all I focus now on is Sales Scripter. And so we basically have a web-based solution that sales pros and sales managers use to develop their message, develop their scripts. We've expanded, and now we also have a CRM, and we create email messages. So it was only natural that we send out emails and do email campaigns and whatnot. I'm still in startup mode. So we're 7 years in. We're still running lean and mean. We are kind of more established now where we have a established customer base. We have customers around the globe. And we're a little bit more comfortable now, but we're still, I still consider as a startup. I'm going to share with you here today a lot of what I've learned in creating those businesses on my own, what I learned as a salesperson, and what I'm helping with my clients to do to build their business. Because what we focus on is getting new clients, helping our clients to get new clients. So I'm going to give you a lot of tips here today. By the way, in January of this year, I published a book called The Smart Sales System. Basically, one of the things I've been doing really big time to generate business is producing content. It hasn't stopped since those first 6 months. I've always produced blog posts, ebooks. We do a lot of webinars. What we're doing here today, I do a lot of these and I record them and put them on YouTube. Well, what I spent 2019 doing was bring all of my content together, and I put it together into a system, and I basically turned that into a book called The Smart Sales System. So this slide and me talking about this looks like me pushing my book on you. I'm not doing that. If you want to buy the book, that's great, but this is the foundation of really everything I'm going to talk to you about here today. So if you want to dig deeper into any of the concepts I talk about, it's all in this book. And just to prove to you that I'm not trying to push a book on you and make a dime off this presentation, actually, and this is part of my go-to-market strategy for ourselves, when we published the Smart Sales System in January, I just finished doing a 15-week webinar series where I did a webinar each week going through the book, and there's a video and a playlist on YouTube with a video for each chapter in the book, and that's all on YouTube for free. So if you want to access the content, but you don't want to buy the book, no problem. It's all on YouTube for free, and I encourage you to go there if any of these concepts interest you that we're going to talk about here today. The starting place that I want to talk about is I want to talk about you. And you are either a startup, you're a business owner, you're a salesperson. Where you're at is you might be trying to build your business, make money, break in, get new clients. And that can be very stressful. It can be confusing. You might not know what to do. But on the other side of that is a potential customer, right? And that can be intimidating. You don't know how to find them. You don't know what to say to them. You have so much work to do and you don't know how you're going to accomplish this, but you need to find that potential customer. The good news is, and what I either want you to become more aware of, or I don't want you to forget, is that you have help to offer. Whatever company you've started, whatever you sell, whatever you've created, hopefully it helps in some way. If what you sell does not help in any way, then you might want to look for something else, some other business to get into. Hopefully what you sell helps someone. And the help that you offer is the value that you deliver. That's your value proposition. If you offer help, then hopefully, and there should be, potential customers out there that need your help. It's just like a doctor that has medicine, right? There's a lot of people out there that don't need the medicine, but there are people that need the medicine. And the medicine helps those people to feel better. Now, if the people that don't need the medicine, they're not interested in the medicine won't help them at all. They don't need it. They don't want to talk about it. So what you need to do is you basically, at the most simple level, you need to establish this connection. You need to find the people that need your help. And you need to establish the connection, establish the communications between you and them. It's just that simple, right? Well, unfortunately, it's not that simple. Because what makes it more difficult is that, yeah, sure, there's a lot of potential customers out there that need your help, but there's a lot, or maybe more, that don't need your help. They don't have any need for what you sell. So it can be difficult to kind of separate who needs your help from those that don't. And there are a lot of potential customers out there that may need what you sell, but they've already purchased it from a competition or they've already solved that problem. So that can make finding potential customers more challenging. And it doesn't really stop there, because there's a lot of competition that you're having to deal with. Depending on what you sell, you may have direct competition. There may be somebody that sells exactly what you sell, and you're going head to head to them with dealing with trying to find and sell to these potential customers. There could also be, well, actually, a bigger threat to you is indirect competition, which are other businesses and salespeople that sell something completely different to you. And you don't even have anything to do with them. You don't know anything about them. But if you're trying to sell to the decision maker or the people that have money and authority, there are tons of other people that are trying to get to that exact same people. So what does that create? That creates all this noise that you're getting drowned out by and that you're having to compete with. And that can be a big challenge for you. But what I'm going to give you here today will hopefully simplify all of that, or if not simplify it, improve your odds of breaking through all of that. So the way that we do that is I want to focus on two things that you do have control over. The first being how you communicate. So the different channels that you use for communicating with your potential customers is something that you can control. And I'm going to talk to you about the different ways that you can communicate. Now, once you've figured out the different ways that you're going to communicate, what you have control over is what you communicate. I deal a lot with salespeople. I'm a salesperson by trade and by background. I personally think that most salespeople sort of improvise when they're talking to prospects. They have all this product knowledge in their head, and they just sort of, when they're talking to someone, they just try to say as much as they can about the product that they sell and build as much interest as they can. And they improvise. And I personally believe the best tool you have are the words that you use, whether those are verbal or written. And so I'm going to talk to you here today about what you can say and how you can communicate. And that's really our agenda here today. It's really simple. I want to talk to you about how to communicate, and I'm going to talk to you about what to communicate. And then I'll just wrap up, try to put all that together with a getting started checklist that you can take with you, and maybe you can work through some of that if you agree with any of those being key things to work on. So let's start with how to communicate. And just real simple, we need to establish the connection between you and the potential prospect. So when people often think about sales, the first thing they think of is the phone and cold calling. Sometimes people think about telemarketing. I actually do try to not use the word telemarketing. I see it as the phone is one way to communicate with people, right? And you might do a cold call, which is calling people cold that don't know who you are. But I don't like the phrase telemarketing. But the phone is definitely one way that you can try to communicate with potential prospects. Of course, email, and that email is one way to communicate. Email is probably your preferable way. A lot of times when you try to call people, in fact, the majority of the time when you try to call people, you're going to, and the most likely thing to happen is you get someone's voicemail box. So it is one way to communicate. It's not a great way, but it is one channel that you have for communicating with people. Of course, social media. Search engine optimization. I talked a little bit about search engine optimization earlier. If you are not knowledgeable about search engine optimization, it's basically getting Google. Really, anytime someone talks about search engine optimization, they're talking about Google, right? There's other search engines out there, but it's all about Google. So as you know, if you've done any Google search, you know that there's some ads at the top and everything below that are Google's results. Google basically tries to send people that are searching on a phrase to the most valuable resource on that topic. Google wants to be the best search engine, and the best search engine is to send people to the best match for what they're looking for. So there are things you can do to make Google think that you're a great resource for keywords related to your business. For example, that's what I did when I had a sales consulting business, and I rolled that knowledge and that practice into Sales Scripter. With Sales Scripter, it's real simple, right? I created tons of content on sales scripts, and I have the word sales script in my domain name. So it didn't take long for Google to see us as experts on sales scripts. So Google sends us, right now, on average, probably 1,000 people a day for free on keywords related to sales scripts, telemarketing scripts, cold call scripts, all that. So if you are a startup and your budget is low and you have time and bandwidth, you can work on search engine optimization. I'm not a search engine optimization expert, but one thing that I believe in improving search engine optimization is creating content. Because Google kind of sees the more content that you have on keywords related to your business, the more of an authority you are. Pay-per-click advertising is a much quicker way to get traffic to your website. You probably are knowledgeable about what pay-per-click advertising is, but with search engine optimization, it can take some time, not only in terms of time for your efforts to bear fruit, but it can also take time and effort to invest in those efforts. Pay-per-click advertising, you can set up an ad in 30 minutes and drive traffic to your website. The good thing is that you only pay for traffic that comes to your website. The downside is it is a cost. So if you're in startup mode, that can be a challenge. Maybe you don't have the funding for that, but if you do, I would encourage it. Email marketing. When I talked about email before, I was referring to like prospecting emails and one-to-one communications, although you can do prospect emailing on a larger scale. But email marketing is more like, messages from your business and whatnot. So I would work on getting some sort of channel set up for that as a way to communicate. Networking. I personally think networking is one of the best ways to establish your business, secure early stage or early adopters, early clients, and grow your business. Cold walking, it doesn't hurt. Of course you can pick up the phone and call someone, but you could walk into the office building of a prospect, and it is something you can do. Physical mail, in today's world, it's all about email. So, but you know what? You can send a professional letter to someone as well. You could basically, if you create a prospecting email message, and by the way, I'm going to give you some examples here today of email messages that you can create and use. Those same exact emails you can print out, put on your letterhead for your business, fold it up, put in an envelope, and also send that to your prospect. It's a low probability type of effort, and it's more time consuming than an email. But when you're really trying to surround someone and do a multi-touch approach, physical mail is definitely something to consider. And direct mail, I'm just putting in here to kind of round out the list. Direct mail is sending direct marketing, physical marketing pieces to someone's mailbox. Probably not a fit for most startups, but in today's day and age, it's probably not real advantageous, but I'm just putting it out there as one channel. So these are the different ways that you can communicate. And what I would say to you is, people often come to me, this question has come up ever since I started Launchpad Solutions. The question is does cold calling work? Or should we do cold calling? The way I like to answer this question is to use a metaphor of referring to a bag of golf clubs. I don't know if everybody here has ever played golf, and I'll assume that you haven't. A bag of golf clubs, each club hits the ball a different distance. And for example, the driver hits the ball the longest, the putter hits the ball the shortest. Each club is different in terms of accuracy. The clubs that hit the ball the furthest are the least accurate. The driver hits the ball the furthest, it's the least accurate. The clubs that hit the ball the shortest are the most accurate. The putter hits the ball the shortest, but it's the most accurate. So when you play around a golf, you play with a variety of clubs because you want to hit the ball different distances with different levels of accuracy. And I see a bag of golf clubs being similar to all those tools that I just shared with you. And those tools deliver your message different distances. For example, search engine optimization and email marketing are similar to your driver. They will deliver your message very long distances. Like you could do an email campaign and send out thousands of emails with the click of a button. But the accuracy of your message being delivered is much less, right? You don't know who's reading the message and you don't know how much of the message they're reading. The putter is like picking up the phone. The phone is extremely accurate because you have that one-to-one communication, but it's extremely time consuming. You have to make a lot of calls in order to have conversations, and it takes time. It's not something that you can only call one person at a time for the most part. The putter is like the cold call. And in the same way that you would not want to play a round of golf with only your putter, because you would be hitting the ball 1,000,000 times and it would take you 4 times as long and you would be extremely tired. That would be the same thing as trying to find new clients by only making phone calls. But on the other extreme, you don't want to only use your driver when you're playing golf. Yes, you'll hit the ball a long way, but you won't have that accuracy needed when you get close to the hole. So, in developing your go-to-market strategy, you need to use a mix. You need to use a mix that delivers of tools that deliver your message very far, very broad. And then you also do need the phone and the human element to close those deals when you get close to the hole. Let's move on and talk about what to communicate across those different channels. And this kind of brings us back to the SMART sales system, because the reason why my book is called SMART, the SMART sales system, why the system is called SMART, is what it stands for is basically sales messaging and response tactics. So really what we focus on is helping improve what you say. And so this system is all about simplifying and not only making it you say the optimum thing at the optimum time, but also making it incredibly easy for you to know what to say. And one of the ways we do that is it's a 3-level approach to building this out. So level one is actually building your sales message. A lot of people come to us to actually create a sales script. Before we create all that, I want to create your sales message. This is not what you're going to say. Well, it leads to what you're going to say. What I mean, it's not the actual documents. It's not your scripts. It's your core message, and it's the foundation. Once we have that, we can progress to level two. Level two is your scripts. So once we have your sales message, which is like the raw data, right? It's the raw details. Then we can use all of that to mix and match all that to create cold call scripts, email messages, voicemail scripts, objection responses, and whatnot. By the way, this is where Sales Scripter came from, in that I realized one day that when I was interviewing my clients over and over again, I realized if I know these small sets of details, how they help, the problems they fix, questions to ask, customer examples, if I know those small details, which those I'm looking basically at the sales message there when I rattled those off, when I know those details, I can use all of that, mix and match it to create a bunch of different documents. And I'm going to show you what those documents look like here in this presentation. But it was that idea that I can create all that led me to realizing I can create a piece of software that creates all that. So basically, Sales Scripter, our software application, is level one and level two. It helps you to build your message, and then the software is going to create level two. Now, level three is how you put all that together and how you sort of go to market or execute, right? So level three is how you cold call, what you do when you're using all these tools. A better example of how these three levels fit together is that level two will actually provide you with objection responses, right? Level three teaches you how to get around objections and deal with objections. So if I just give you objection responses, but you don't know how to use them, then they're not going to do you much good. Or if I teach you how to get around objections, but I don't give you the responses to say, you're not going to know what to say when you're trying the tactics. So level three is how you use all of these tools, and that's basically the SMART system. We're going to really quickly go through how you can create your sales message for your company or your product that you're trying to go to market with. And it's a structured process that we go through, and I'm going to try to go through this really quickly. Again, if I go through it too quickly and you want more, go to YouTube or go to the book. But the process is we start with your product that you sell, and then we want to identify a target buyer type that you're going after. And then when you provide that product to that particular target buyer, what value is it possible for them to realize? How does your product potentially help that person? And then when you help them, what problems or pain points do you help make go away? And after we figure out some of the pain points that you help make go away, what are some questions we can ask to figure out if someone has some of the problems that you can help to resolve? And then the last step is maybe, is there an example of how you've helped someone else? If you're in startup mode, you likely might not have a customer example, but if you have a customer example, a case study, a use case, that's definitely great to have in your sales message. So we want to get that in there. So we start with your product. You probably have a ton of product knowledge in your head. And you probably have too much, to be honest with you. You probably have too much product knowledge. And what you probably need to be careful of is just talking about your product too much or only talking about your product. That's probably the worst thing you could do. There's a time and a place to get into the product details. The goal of this sales message that I'm going to help you to create is to get your foot in the door and to get the meeting. So that's really what we're focused on. When you get the meeting, get the appointment, that's where you can maybe start to get into all those product details. But even then, you should still be very focused on the prospect and asking a lot of questions. So you really need to resist that natural instinct to talk about your product. When we do talk about your product, there are some very high details that we can get into in your sales message. So what is it you're ultimately trying to sell to the product? We'll brainstorm some of the main features. A key thing is identify how you differ from the competition. You definitely want that in your sales message. And you can identify any company bragging points, like if you were the first company to develop a patent or develop this, or you're the best at that, or you're a woman-owned business, minority-owned, you've won some sort of award. Get that in there. If you're a startup and you don't have too many bragging points, no worries. But if you do, get it into your sales message. So I'm going to go through these steps, and I'm actually going to use a very generic, simple product example that we can all relate to, just to show you what a sales message could look like by going through this process. I'm going to use an example of a salesperson trying to sell a membership to a health and fitness club. So the product is a health and fitness club membership. Some features are, hey, we have weights, exercise equipment, classes, pool, sauna. By the way, average salespeople, that is their sales message. I mean, if you've ever gone to a gym and you see a potential customer come in, this is the sales pitch. Oh, come on in, let's take a tour. Here's our weights, here's our classes, here's our pool, here are our membership options. Which package are you interested in? That's the sales pitch. So what I'm trying to get you to do is to move beyond that and to be more sophisticated. By the way, if you only sound like that, then you sound like you get drowned out by the other salespeople. It's going beyond that where you begin to stand out. So the next step in the process is to think about your target buyer, because this is where you start to become more sophisticated, because if you only focus on your product and all you talk about is your product, you can say the same thing to everybody. But if you are focused on different types of buyers, you can tailor your message to those different buyers. It's this step where we can begin to tailor all of the steps beyond it. So if we take a step back and we look at that potential customer, by the way, you can skip this step, and at least when you're just getting started, you can be real broad. You can use a target buyer type of like businesses or homeowners or retirees, whatever very broad category it is. But when you want to get more sophisticated, you can drill into some different categories, like what size. Are you dealing with big corporations? Are you dealing with small companies? So you can get specific in terms of size, in terms of revenue or employees or number of sites. You can start to think about the geography that they're in. You can start to think about different industries that you maybe want to target. Are you targeting manufacturers? If you're selling B2B, you might want to think about the different department that you're trying to get into, or the different department that would buy from you or is most likely to buy from you. Are you trying to sell to finance or human resources or marketing? Is there a particular level in the organization that you're trying to sell to? I mean, of course, we all want to sell at the C level, but are there some other levels, VP, director, manager? These are some details that you can try to get your hands around, and you can pick a few of these as you move to the next step. For this example, I'm picking individuals that are looking to get healthier. And as you can see, think about this. If you're selling a gym membership to someone that is unhealthy, compared to selling a gym membership to someone that works out already that's looking to change gyms, those should be two different sales messages. And this is an example of how identifying the target buyer type that you're communicating with should change what you talk about. Moving on to the next step, we need to identify our value. Yes, you could just say, okay, what is the value that my product offers, and think of it very broadly, and that's a good step. Since we have the particular buyer type picked out, what value specifically for that buyer is created? And so I'll show you that when we get into the example. But I actually want to just kind of drill into the concept of value and give you 3 levels. This might sound a bit granular. You don't need to remember all this, but I want you to look at this slide and just realize that your product probably helps in a lot of different ways. So there's 3 different types of value. You have technical value, that your product helps to improve processes or systems or people. So some examples are automating a task, making something work better, decreasing the amount of time for something, improving visibility, improving communications, performance, reliability. When your product delivers technical value, that will typically work its way up and create business value in the form of improving revenue, decreasing costs, improving the way that customer delivers their own services. So some examples of that are, of course, improving revenue, profitability, market share, decreasing costs of a variety of types, improving delivery of services. When you deliver business value and technical value, you are likely to deliver personal value to the actual buyer. So if you sell to a VP of operations and his or her department realizes all these different benefits, that person could realize some personal benefits, like they could get promoted, they could get a bigger bonus at the end of the year. That hopefully will get you thinking about different types of value that you offer. Now let's get back to the example here. So if someone uses our health and fitness club, again, we're really building a message for those people that are needing to be healthier. Well, some of the ways we can help that person is we can help them to become healthier, decrease stress, feel better, become more confident, improve personal relationships, decrease medical costs, transform their life, okay? So picture that person who's talking about treadmills and weights and yoga classes versus the salesperson who's talking about transforming someone's life. Who's going to sell more? So this is where you really begin to become the cream of the crop and stand out from the rest. So if you need help figuring out the value that you offer, here are some brainstorming questions. Does your product help the buyer type to improve processes, make anything work better, save time, improve visibility, improve communications? Thinking about business value, do you help to decrease costs, help with revenue, profitability, decision-making, risk? Some personal value questions, do you help them make more money, decrease their personal costs, improve work-life balance, stress, happiness, job security? Moving on now to pain. Pain, basically, we're talking about the pain points that you help to make go away, not pain points in general. What you want to know is, what are the pain points that you help make go away? And you want to talk about those. So in the same way that there's 3 levels of value, there's the same 3 levels of pain. So there's technical pain. In the same way that you can help make processes and systems and people work better, all those things could be not working well. You know, things are time consuming, things are manual, things are unreliable. And in the same way that you can make business improvements, there's business pain. Revenue's low, costs are high, services are unreliable, and there's personal pain for your buyer. They're in a dead-end job. They can't get home at night to have dinner with their family. So some ideas of things for you to think about. If we get back to our process of creating a message, this is one trick that I use when I'm creating messages with my clients. And that, sure, if I ask a client, what pain points do you help with? 80% of the time, they can put on the wall 3 different pain points. That's great. That's a good place to start. I would actually tell you, put that to the side. First, look at the value points that you offer. For each value point that you offer, there's usually a corresponding, actually inverse related pain point. I'll give you an example. If your product is a pill and the pill helps someone to sleep better at night, sleeping better at night is the benefit. The pain point is tossing and turning. So the pain point, the benefit resolves that pain point. And we're able to think about that pain point by looking at the benefit, and you basically turn it upside down, figuratively speaking. So if we help someone to become healthier, then maybe they're struggling with getting healthy. If we help someone to decrease stress, there's a pain point of having a lot of stress. Be more confident. Don't have self-confidence. So you can look at each benefit and usually develop a corresponding list of pain points. One of the good things about using this process is that it'll usually help you develop a good, complete list of pain points, help you to not miss anything. Usually will help you to think of stuff you wouldn't have thought of otherwise. But bear in mind, if we develop this list of benefits from feeding off of our target buyer, then we're developing a list of pain points that are specific to that target buyer. Because remember, this message doesn't fit with the gym rat that's looking to change gyms, because the benefits would be totally different for that target buyer type. So the pain points would be totally different for that person too. So we're really driving into a tailored message here. By the way, if you screw it up on the value, your pain points are going to kind of be screwed up as well. So it's kind of a progressive process here. So you kind of, value is the most tricky step. Moving on to questions, I personally believe that the best salesperson is the one that asks the best questions. I think that when someone's trying to figure out how can I sell my product, they usually think about how can I talk about my product in the most compelling way, and how can I talk about my product as much as possible. I personally think the best thing you could do is figure out what questions should I be asking in order to sell my product. And you may agree with that. You may say, oh, yeah, that's great. I should ask more questions, but I don't know what questions to ask. Well, the good thing is that if you have your list of pain points, that can be a good guide to help you to create a great list of questions, because that's the stuff you should be looking for. If someone doesn't have the pain points that you help make go away, then they're not a good prospect for you. They're one of those not potential customers that we talked about in the beginning. So let's go back to the sleeping well at night. So if you help someone to sleep better, the pain point is tossing and turning, don't get enough sleep, tired during the day, then questions you could ask are, how well are you sleeping? How many nights a week do you feel like you don't get good quality sleep? How often do you find yourself tired when you wake up? Those are great questions to ask, and you can create those questions by looking at the pain point. Basically, each pain point can help you to think about a corresponding question to ask to see if someone has that concern. The other thing you should probably develop are what I would call current environment questions. So these could possibly find pain, but usually for what you sell, there's questions around what are they doing today? Are they using anything today? How long have they been using that? What are they using? How big are they? How small are they? How many sites do they have? So I call these current environment questions. That should be part of your sales message. And the last step is this name drop example. So basically what you could look, if you have an example to share, that would be great. Usually you could sometimes get some ideas of what to create for a name drop example. You probably want it to be leaning towards the value that you offer, not just that we sold this product to this person, but you want to talk about how a product helped someone that you've sold it to. So you could often look back at your value points and get some ideas and think about a customer and create an example. So that what we just did there is we created your sales message, and you can use all of that to create a lot of different stuff. Now, due to time, I am going to fly through a lot of slides. I'm going to go through them so fast that you probably won't have time to read them, and I'm not going to read them to you. But you have access to the slide deck. So I just wanted to get everything in the slide deck. So and I'll try to explain as much as I can, but you can use your sales message to create a call script. So each of those things that we just created, basically, I refer to those things that we just created as building blocks, and you can mix and match them to create a call script. And these are actually literally the blocks on the left side. But opening the call, have I caught you in the middle of anything? You can use your value points for the purpose for your call. You could also use pain points for the purpose of your call. You could use your name drop for the purpose of your call. Sales takeaway, that's something I talk about in my training. Pre-qualify, you can pre-qualify with your pain questions. You can pre-qualify with your current environment questions. If you start to run into a dead-end road, you can share some of the pain points that you help with. If you trigger some sort of interest, or identify that there's some sort of maybe the slightest potential for a fit, you can try to build a little bit of interest, just enough interest so you can close for a meeting by sharing some information about what you have to offer in terms of your product, and then you can close. That's a call script. There's plenty more for me to talk about how to use that call script. Look for that in other training videos. So we can use those building blocks to create email messages. These templates that I give you basically uses a different building block for each message. So here's a value points cold email message designed to be one-to-one. Here's a pain points cold email message. Here's a name drop cold email message. Again, you're going to get these slides. Pain questions email, product email, last attempt email using your value points, keep me in mind email with some product details. Voicemail messages. I mentioned the voicemail box is one, albeit not great, but one way to communicate. We can use your building blocks to create voicemail messages. Here's a message with your value points. Here's a message with your pain points. Message with your name drop. Message with some product details. Objection responses. When you get out there and you're trying to find new customers, talk to potential customers, you're going to run into objections. And you can use those building blocks for objection responses. What is this in regards to? You can respond with your value points. Is this a sales call? You can respond with your value points. I'm not interested. You can respond with your pain questions, pain points. One of the most common objections is just send me your info. You can reply with your pain questions. You can reply with your current environment questions. You could deflect to your sales process. We already use someone for that. You can deflect to current environment questions. You can deflect to pain questions, pain points. We don't have budget right now. You can deflect to sales process, pain questions, pain points. We're not looking to make any changes right now. Pain questions, pain points, sales process. Call me back in X months. You can deflect back to your sales process, pain points. And that's it. So I know I went through that really quickly. Again, on YouTube, there's a whole module on cold calling. There's a whole separate module on email prospecting. There's a whole separate module on objection responses. So if you want to hear me explain each of those, go to YouTube. If you just want the responses for yourself, get the slide deck. And that's pretty much it. I just want to wrap up with sort of a getting started checklist. So how do we put all that together, right? What do you need to do now? So what I would start with is I would recommend you start with creating your sales message, going through that process, brainstorming, how do I help? What problems do I solve? What questions should I ask? Use what you brainstorm to create, hey, listen, if you don't feel like you need a cold call script or you're not doing cold calling, that's great. At least create a set of questions to ask. And I know you're probably going to be emailing, so at least create email templates. The other thing I would do is I would start creating content. So you heard from my real life examples with both businesses that I started. Day one, even before I was operational, I was creating content. And a lot of that was basically blogging about different aspects of my business, really. And so you might, you may hear that and you may think, okay, well, what should I be blogging about? And I'll tell you what, here's a really cool trick that you can use. When you create your sales message, you can use your sales message as a guide for content to create, meaning blog posts to write. Sales Scripter helps sales managers to decrease the amount of time it takes to train new sales hires, okay? So that's a benefit that we offer. Well, I can write a whole blog post on that benefit. And it doesn't have to be a whole book, but you want to create a 300 to 500 word blog post. You just need like 3 ways to shorten new hire training time. And then, you introduce the topic. You have a small paragraph on tip 1, a small paragraph on tip 2, a small paragraph on tip 3, and then you summarize. There you go. There's a blog post. And it might not even be that great a content or that really informative, but what happens is Google will scan that and they'll pick up your keywords and they'll see that you have a blog post on that topic. And if that topic is value that you offer, then that topic is good for Google to start thinking about how you help. So anyways, start creating content. By the way, never know where this content goes. Like the Smart Sales System book and these webinars that I've been doing for years, it all stemmed from me creating content. So you start creating content about the product that you sell, and you can use that content in all sorts of different ways, whether it's blog posts. By the way, the blog posts you create, I talked about email marketing as being one of your channels. You can use your blog posts become great email messages to send through your email marketing. So I mentioned if I created a blog post on 3 tips for training sales hires, then I could send that out in an email, a marketing email that says, instead of me promoting my product, I'm sending out a tip. And that email, it can be about 3 tips. And in the email, I can have the first paragraph and it can say, click here to read more. They click here, they go to my blog. Now I'm driving traffic to my website. Also, that blog post can also be something I can share on social media. And once you have a few blog posts, who knows, maybe then it makes sense you could create a video on YouTube, do a webinar. So step 4 might be to look into possibly setting up pay-per-click ads for your product. Networking is key. So when possible, try to network. Build an attack list. I mentioned that the phone is part of your toolkit, right? I'm not saying that you need to become a cold calling monster and you need to spend all day cold calling. In fact, if you, depending on how busy you are and how much funding you have or budget you have, it's outsourcing your cold calling in the same way that the first business that I had, where I had a work-at-home person, cold calling, and I sold that to other businesses, that is a probably better use of your time. If you're a business owner, your time is so valuable. If you have tons of time and little money, then you should be the one that's making calls. If you're extremely busy and you have some money, you might want to look at outsourcing someone to make calls for you and to schedule meetings for you. Whether you do that or not, I'm not saying that you need a ton of hours of cold calling and phone prospecting, telemarketing, whatever you want to call it. Your use of the phone could be as small as you identifying, making an attack list of 5 businesses or 5 people that you know or 5 people that you found that are related, that are potential customers, and your attack list is 5 people. And you're going to spend the next month calling 5 people. So I'm not going to tell you how big your attack list could be. It could be 1,000 people. So you need to determine what that looks like. But step 6 could be creating that attack list of these are the businesses, these are the people that I'm going to go after. Once you have that, it's time to pick up the phone. And again, it's case by case, whether it's 1 hour a day, 4 hours a day, 1 hour a week. So that's up to you. Step 8 might be to set up an email marketing system. There's plenty of software applications out on the market, and there's lots of good ones. So what I would do, the only thing I would say about email marketing is be real cautious about like buying lists and just spamming people. Find a way to build a really good opt-in list. One of the ways that we've done that, we use MailChimp for email marketing. I'm not an affiliate or anything, but been a very happy MailChimp customer and happy to recommend them. But in MailChimp, I have about 30,000 people, and I mean, some people may see that as small, some people maybe see that as big, but I have 30,000 people that have opted in to a list. So it's a great email list. I mean, people open emails, the unsubscribe is really low, and it's because all of it is from people opting in. Now, the way I got people to opt in is that on my website, and I guess this is something I could have included here on the slide. One thing that I think was a really good thing that I did was about 3 years ago, and by the way, that 30,000 was generated in, I don't know, 3 years or so. But about 3 years ago, I went to a website and I noticed that I noticed that there were websites that had pop-ups, and a lot of pop-ups are really bad. Like, have you ever gone to a website and the pop-up pops up before you even know where you are? And they're saying, hey, do you want to be on our newsletter? And you don't even know where you are. And you have to close it, the pop-up, to see where you are. And then maybe you might want to get on their list, but the pop-up isn't there. Don't do that. But I noticed that there were some very smart pop-ups that as I was going to the back button and trying to leave, then the pop-up showed up. And I just did a quick Google search on pop-ups when you're leaving. And I found the solution. I'll tell you the product that we use. We use a product called Pop-Up Domination. I think is what it's called. Maybe they've changed by now, but that should get you there. And they have a great product. And the pop-up only shows when people are about to leave. So as long as they're there and looking around, you're not going to hit them up. So anyways, I implemented that, and I put like, hey, you want to get 6 ebooks for free? Get 6 ebooks for free, and all they have to do is put in their email address. And so I get about 20 opt-ins a day on that, and it's a great way. It's a great tool. Going back to creating content, I think I skipped over this, but YouTube is also a great place to create content, whatever the format of the content is, and that's a great channel to drive traffic to your business. The last thing that I recommend is to develop some sort of social media strategy. My advice to you would be get on as many of the platforms as you can, create content, and broadcast your message, and drive those social media accounts to your website, and then have some sort of call to action on your website